In 1981, 6 of the biggest movie stars on the planet got together to make what one of them privately described as one of the worst decisions of his career. It cost $18 million to produce. It made over $100 million worldwide. Roger Ebert called it an abdication of artistic responsibility at the lowest possible level of ambition. It was the 6th highest-grossing film of the year. The Cannonball Run wasn't supposed to be a masterpiece. It was supposed to be a party, a collection of famous people in fast cars having a genuinely good time on someone else's budget. What it became, in the most unexpected way, is one of the most historically interesting comedy films of the 1980s. Not because of its script, which barely existed, not because of its directing, but because almost everything in it was real. The race, the stunts, the ruses used to evade police, the ambulance, and the barely suppressed chaos of putting that many famous, underprepared people in the same car chase and telling them to improvise. 15 facts today, spanning the entire franchise, from the real illegal race that started it all, through 3 films and 4 decades of legacy. One of these facts involves a stunt woman who was critically injured. Another involves a decision made in this film that changed Jackie Chan's career forever. And the one we close on explains why a movie that critics dismissed in 1981 is still talked about as something genuinely irreplaceable. Let's start the countdown. 15. The race was real, and it was illegal. Before there was a film, before there was a franchise, there was an actual race. A genuinely illegal, gloriously irresponsible, coast-to-coast automobile race organized specifically to make a point about speed limits. Brock Yates, editor of Car and Driver magazine, viewed the 55 miles per hour national speed limit as government overreach. His response was to organize a cross-country race to prove it was both unenforceable and unnecessary. He called it the Cannonball Baker Sea to Shining Sea Memorial Trophy Dash, held 4 times between 1971 and 1979, from the Red Ball Garage in New York City to the pier at Redondo Beach, California. The race attracted real drivers, automotive journalists, and enthusiasts with elaborately disguised vehicles. One team drove a van with a police scanner, one dressed as priests, a detail that went directly into the film. Another consisted of women in form-fitting jumpsuits, whose strategy for avoiding tickets relied more on persuasion than evasion. In 1971, Yates and racing legend Dan Gurney made the crossing in 35 hours and 54 minutes. Asked about their maximum speed, Gurney reportedly said with complete composure, "At no time did we ever exceed 175 miles per hour." That line tells you everything about what the Cannonball was. Political statement, automotive adventure, organized civil disobedience. Hollywood noticed. 14. The ambulance in the film was the real ambulance from the real race. The ambulance driven by Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise in the film, the beat-up Dodge tradesman van with a concealed high-performance engine, was not a prop vehicle built to look like the one from the race. It was the actual vehicle. Needham and Yates had used a real ambulance as their entry in the 1979 Cannonball. It had been modified with a Hemi engine capable of 145 miles per hour, equipped with 4 fuel fill points, so 90 gallons could be pumped simultaneously. A fake medical team rode in the rear. Yates's wife played the patient. The strategy, using an emergency vehicle to justify crossing state lines at speed, fooled law enforcement more than once in the real race. When production began, they retrieved the same vehicle and put it in front of the cameras. Needham himself appears in the film's opening as the ambulance EMT, uncredited, playing himself, essentially, in a vehicle he had literally driven across the country. The scene where JJ explains that the patient cannot fly and must be driven urgently to California was drawn directly from real tactics used on real highways in 1979. The line between documentary reality and fiction was nearly invisible, because in places it was the same people, the same vehicle, doing the same things, just with a film crew watching this time. 13. Burt Reynolds admitted he sold out and made $100 million anyway. By 1980, Burt Reynolds was the biggest box office star in America. He had been #1 at the domestic box office for several consecutive years. He didn't need to make another car comedy. He had already made Smokey and the Bandit with Hal Needham in 1977, which had been the 2nd highest grossing film of that year, trailing only Star Wars. He had made Smokey and the Bandit 2 in 1980. He was, by any measure, a bankable star who could afford to be selective. He took the Cannonball Run anyway. He later explained why with a candor that is either admirably honest or unsettlingly blunt, depending on your perspective. "I did that film for all the wrong reasons," Reynolds said. "I never liked it. I did it to help out a friend of mine, Hal Needham, and I also felt it was immoral to turn down that kind of money. I suppose I sold out, so I couldn't really object to what people wrote about me." He barely read the script. He didn't rehearse. By multiple accounts, he treated the production as a vacation, showing up, delivering his lines with the effortless charm of someone who could do this kind of thing in his sleep, and not particularly worrying about the artistic result. The character he played, J.J. McClure, was barely a character in the scripted sense. He was Burt Reynolds, smiling and likable, navigating a road race. The distance between performance and personality was close to zero. And yet, the film made $72 million in North America, over $100 million worldwide. It was the sixth highest grossing film of 1981, behind Raiders of the Lost Ark, On Golden Pond, Superman 2, Arthur, and Stripes. It made enormous money in Germany, where it was the third highest grossing film of the year. In Japan, it was the second highest grossing foreign film of 1982. Reynolds sold out, as he put it. The audience showed up anyway, and the film he didn't like made him richer. In Hollywood, that paradox resolves itself the same way every time. You make the sequel. "12. Roger Moore parodied James Bond and got Bond producers furious. Roger Moore's character in the Cannonball Run is named Seymour Goldfarb Jr. He drives an Aston Martin DB5 with the same British registration plate that appeared in Goldfinger and Thunderball. When he introduces himself, the Bond theme plays. He wears a tuxedo. He uses an oil slick to ditch a pursuing police car. The joke is completely transparent, and Moore plays it with the specific kind of knowing amusement of someone who finds it genuinely funny that this is what his cultural identity has been reduced to. The Bond producers were not amused. Moore was under contract as James Bond at the time. He had played the role since 1973 and would continue playing it through 1985's A View to a Kill. The producers who owned the Bond franchise, the Broccoli family and Eon Productions, had not approved this satirical deployment of the character's iconography. They couldn't legally prevent it, precisely because Moore was playing a fictional character named Seymour Goldfarb, who merely resembled Bond rather than playing Bond himself. But the implicit mockery of the franchise's most valuable asset was not something they found charming. The result, reportedly, was contractual. According to various accounts of the episode, the Bond producers subsequently added clauses to future Bond actors' contracts, specifically prohibiting this kind of self-parody. The Cannonball Run became, in this sense, the last time an actual serving James Bond actor would be allowed to openly spoof the character on screen. Moore apparently had no regrets. The character he built, a man who seems to believe he actually is James Bond, surrounded by people who treat him as though he might be, is one of the funniest things in the film precisely because Moore plays it completely straight. The joke works because he doesn't blink. If this kind of deep dive into real Hollywood history is what you've been looking for, subscribe. We cover the stories behind the films every week, and there's a lot more ahead. 11. Farrah Fawcett never saw a full script. The production of the Cannonball Run was, by any technical measure, extraordinarily loose. Scenes were rewritten daily. Dialogue was improvised constantly. Actors showed up to set without full information about what they'd be doing. Needham's background as a stuntman meant he worked fast and reactively, valuing energy over precision. Farrah Fawcett, who played the kidnapped photographer, pressed into service as a fake ambulance patient, later said she never received a complete script. Dom DeLuise admitted most of his lines were invented in the moment. Dean Martin rarely followed what was written at all. The improvisation wasn't undirected. Needham had a clear sense of each scene's shape. But within that shape, he gave his cast room to do whatever made them funny. What stuck was whatever made the crew laugh. What got cut was whatever didn't. This methodology produced the film's most memorable moments, including DeLuise's Captain Chaos sequences, which contain almost nothing from any prepared text. It also produced the blooper reel, because in an atmosphere that loose, the distinction between a usable take and a botched one was often whether what emerged was funnier than what was planned. The film that was never fully scripted became one people still quote 40 years later. There is a lesson in there somewhere about the relationship between preparation and creativity, though it might only work when your cast includes Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise. 10. Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. were frequently drunk on set. This is the entry that requires some historical framing before it's discussed, because both men are now remembered fondly enough that this detail deserves to be handled with both honesty and appropriate context. Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. played Jamie Blake and Morris Fenderbaum, a pair of gamblers who enter the race disguised as Catholic priests. Their dynamic in the film is warm, funny, and has a quality of genuine ease that reads as real friendship because it was. Martin and Davis had known each other since the Rat Pack days of the late 1950s. They liked each other. They communicated through a shared shorthand that decades of friendship had built. By multiple accounts, neither man took the production particularly seriously. They showed up late to set regularly. They improvised their dialogue extensively. They drank throughout filming. At one point, Davis reportedly delivered an entire prayer scene so affected by alcohol that the audio had to be completely re-recorded in post-production. Needham allowed it because he understood something important. The specific chemistry between Martin and Davis was not something that could be directed into existence. These were two men in their mid to late 50s with a decades-long friendship, at a stage of their careers where they were primarily interested in enjoying themselves. The choice Needham faced was between controlling them and losing what made them watchable, or releasing the controls and capturing something genuine that no amount of preparation could produce. He chose the latter. And the scenes between Martin and Davis, loose, warm, slightly chaotic, are among the most charming in the film. Cannonball Run 2 was the final theatrical film for both men. Whatever the circumstances of those performances, there is something valuable in having them preserved. The Rat Pack at play. One last time.
Yeah.
My rosary bead?
Yeah.
You shove him this nose
Up
here?
that nose, yeah.
9. A stunt woman was critically injured during filming. Not everything about the Cannonball Run's production was charming chaos. One moment crossed from adventure into genuine tragedy, and it deserves to be recorded honestly. During the filming of a sequence involving the Aston Martin DB5, driven by Roger Moore's character, a stunt woman was critically injured in a crash. The specific details of the accident, exactly what went wrong and under what circumstances, have been covered sparsely in the public record, but the injury itself has been documented in multiple accounts of the production. Stunt work in 1980s, Hollywood operated under regulations significantly less stringent than those in place today. High-speed vehicle work in particular carried real risk, and the culture of action film production at the time often treated the acceptance of that risk as a professional given rather than something to be systematically reduced through safety engineering. The accident on the Cannonball Run is a reminder that underneath the celebrity and the comedy and the sense of a cast on a paid adventure, the physical work of making an action film has real consequences. The people who do that work, and who rarely appear in the cultural conversation about the films they make, take genuine risks. The stunt woman who was injured on that production was not a famous person. She was doing her job in service of a film that nobody involved took particularly seriously. That asymmetry is worth acknowledging. 8. The blooper reel changed Jackie Chan's career forever. Jackie Chan's involvement in the Cannonball Run was the result of a business arrangement rather than a creative invitation. Raymond Chow, the head of Golden Harvest, the Hong Kong studio that co-produced the film, required Chan's participation as a condition of the deal. Chan was Golden Harvest's biggest Asian star and had just appeared in his first Hollywood film, The Big Brawl, in 1980. Chow wanted to continue building his American profile. Chan played a Japanese racing driver piloting a Subaru packed with high-tech gadgetry. He appears in roughly 15 minutes of the film's running time, received uncredited billing in the American release, and by his own account found the on-set atmosphere deeply uncomfortable. He described it later as very Hollywood in the bad sense of the word, a production culture very different from the rigorously physical, intensely choreographed action filmmaking he had developed in Hong Kong. His American Hollywood debut was not the career breakthrough anyone had hoped for. The film bombed in Hong Kong entirely. In Japan, where Chan's Asian celebrity translated, he received top billing, above Burt Reynolds, and the film performed well. But something happened during the production that would have an impact far beyond the film itself. The Cannonball Run ended with a blooper reel, outtakes of missed cues, Flubbed lines and broken takes played over the closing credits. This was a Hal Needham tradition, continued from the Smokey and the Bandit films. Chan watched it. He found it fascinating, and he decided to adopt the same idea for his own films, but to apply it to his specific kind of filmmaking, which meant showing not the comedy of missed lines, but the reality of dangerous stunts going wrong. Jackie Chan's closing credit outtake sequences became one of the most distinctive signatures in action cinema, a tradition of showing the physical cost of his films that audiences around the world came to specifically look forward to. Broken wrists, hard falls, repeated attempts at sequences that required dozens of takes. The transparency about how the work was actually done became part of what made Chan's films feel different. He got the idea from Hal Needham's blooper reels. The Cannonball Run gave Jackie Chan the tool that became one of the most recognizable elements of his career. 7. The sequel was bigger, wilder, and considerably worse. Cannonball Run 2 arrived in 1984 and is a genuinely fascinating document of Hollywood excess in the early Reagan era, assembled primarily because the first had made so much money, built on the logic that if one of something is good, more must be better. The cast list is almost comically overstocked. Beyond Reynolds and DeLuise returning, the sequel added Frank Sinatra, Shirley MacLaine, Charles Nelson Riley, Don Knotts, Tim Conway, Telly Savalas, Jim Nabors, Henry Silva, Richard Kiel, and, in one of the stranger casting decisions of the decade, a chimpanzee as a supporting character. The principle seemed to be, find every available celebrity with a sense of humor and a willingness to drive fast, and put them in frame somewhere. Critics were even less charitable than they'd been with the original. The film made around $55 million domestically, significantly less than the first, which Hollywood read as franchise decline. The additions felt padded rather than inspired. What Cannonball Run 2 accomplished was providing the final theatrical appearances of both Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. The last time two Rat Pack members shared a movie screen was in a road race comedy with a chimpanzee. There are worse ways to go out, but there are also better ones. 6. The third film. Almost nobody remembers Speed Zone. Also released as Cannonball Fever in some markets, arrived in 1989 and is, by any honest assessment, the forgotten chapter of the Cannonball franchise. It was produced without Burt Reynolds, without Dom DeLuise, without Dean Martin or Sammy Davis Jr., and without director Hal Needham. The film kept the premise, a cross-country race full of eccentric competitors, but replaced the specific chemistry that had made the first film memorable with an entirely new cast. The replacement cast was not without names. John Candy, Peter Boyle, Donna Dixon, and Matt Frewer appeared, along with a range of other performers. The film was not without moments, but in the specific context of what had come before, it felt like watching someone attempt to recreate a meal by following the recipe without having access to the original ingredients. The film made modest returns and largely disappeared from popular memory, which is itself telling. The Cannonball Run franchise's appeal had never really been about road racing as a concept. It was about a specific collection of people enjoying each other's company in a format that didn't ask too much of anyone. Remove those people, and what remains is just a race. And a race without personality is just traffic. Speed Zone demonstrated, by negative example, exactly what the first film's actual value was, and that value had nothing to do with the cars. 5. The real Cannonball race record was finally broken, decades later. After the 1979 race that inspired the film, the official Cannonball Baker Sea to Shining Sea Memorial Trophy Dash was never held again. Brock Yates retired the event, concluding that the safety risks had become too significant to continue sanctioning even as an outlaw affair. But the spirit of the race never quite died. Unofficial attempts continued to be tracked informally among a community of enthusiasts who treated the original Cannonball as secular scripture. In 2020, during the early weeks of the COVID-19 pandemic, when American highway traffic was dramatically reduced, multiple teams attempted the crossing, and the record was broken several times in rapid succession, the fastest unofficial crossing reaching approximately 25 hours, though these attempts were unsanctioned and conducted in conditions that road safety experts found deeply alarming. The compulsion to go faster and refuse limits is very American in a specific way. The Cannonball Run understood perfectly. The race in the film isn't really about cars. It's about a philosophy of freedom, the conviction that open road and available horsepower constitute a liberty that rules exist to diminish. Whether you find that admirable or irresponsible probably says something about you, for. The film was produced by Hong Kong's most powerful studio, which made Bruce Lee famous. One of the stranger footnotes in Cannonball Run history is where the money came from. The film was co-produced by Golden Harvest, the Hong Kong film company founded by Raymond Chow that had produced Bruce Lee's most significant films, including Way of the Dragon and Enter the Dragon, in the early 1970s. Golden Harvest was, by 1980, the most commercially successful film studio in Asia, built on martial arts action films with the biggest stars in Asian cinema under contract, including Jackie Chan. The decision to co-produce the Cannonball Run was part of a strategy to build Golden Harvest's international presence and give Chan exposure in Western markets. This is why Chan is in the film despite having no organic connection to the story, the format, or the culture that produced it. His studio's money was there, and his participation was part of the deal. Golden Harvest's financial involvement required it. The Bruce Lee studio funding a Burt Reynolds road race comedy, deploying a future action superstar in a minor role as leverage for a business arrangement. Hollywood has always been stranger than the movies it makes. 3. Singer Freddie Mercury bought Burt Reynolds' prop mustache. This is not the most historically significant fact in the script, but it is perhaps the most purely delightful. Burt Reynolds' character in the Cannonball Run wore a mustache. The prop mustache, a false one, worn on set and then auctioned as part of a memorabilia sale, was purchased at auction for $25,000 by Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of Queen. Mercury was, by 1981, one of the most celebrated rock performers alive. He was also, by various accounts of his personal taste, a genuinely enthusiastic collector of art, antiques, and memorabilia, someone who spent money on things that appealed to him without necessarily consulting a committee about whether those things were culturally appropriate acquisitions. He apparently wanted Burt Reynolds' fake mustache. He paid $25,000 for it. It joined his collection. There is something wonderfully incongruous about this. The prop from a film that its own star admitted doing for all the wrong reasons, purchased at auction by one of the most flamboyant rock icons in history, sitting in a collection alongside presumably more conventional artworks and antiques. Mercury died in 1991. The mustache's current whereabouts are unclear, but somewhere in the world there may be a fake Burt Reynolds mustache with a provenance that includes Freddie Mercury, and that is, objectively, an excellent fact to know.
Can you read my lips? Where is the doctor? The auxiliary tank. God damn it, I give you one response.
2. The Cannonball Run made end-credit bloopers standard practice in Hollywood. Before the Cannonball Run, end-credit blooper reels were not a convention of mainstream Hollywood filmmaking. They existed in isolated examples, but were not a recognized part of how a film presented itself to its audience. Hal Needham had started the practice with Smokey and the Bandit 2 in 1980. When he carried the tradition into the Cannonball Run, with a particularly rich supply of outtake material given the improvisation-heavy production, the blooper reel became, for many viewers, as anticipated as any other part of the film experience. The sequence of Dom DeLuise repeatedly fluffing his lines next to the ambulance is more quoted than most of the film's intentional jokes. Jackie Chan observed it and understood it could be applied with even more striking effect to his specific filmmaking. Not the comedy of missed lines, but the physical reality of dangerous stunts going wrong. Broken wrists, hard falls, dozens of attempts at sequences that required real courage. The transparency became part of what made Chan's films feel different, but the broader impact was on the industry as a whole. Post-credit sequences, whether comedic bloopers or story-relevant scenes, became standard in how films were packaged. The Marvel Cinematic Universe's post-credit scenes share their basic DNA with the tradition Needham developed in 1980. A stunt coordinator turned director, making a loose road race comedy, accidentally standardized one of modern cinema's most recognizable conventions. Sometimes the accidents are more durable than the intentions. 1. What the Cannonball Run was actually about. And here is the thing that sits underneath all the blooper reels and the celebrity cameos and the $100 million and the Roger Moore Bond parody. The Cannonball Run is a film about people who refuse to accept that the world has the right to tell them how fast to go. Brock Yates organized the real race as a protest against the 55 miles per hour speed limit, a protest that said, essentially, that the government's management of how Americans moved through their own country had crossed a line. The participants in the real Cannonball were not exclusively reckless thrill seekers. They were, in many cases, car people, speed enthusiasts, people for whom the open road represented a specific kind of freedom that felt genuinely diminished by bureaucratic constraint. The film captured that spirit because the people who made it had lived it. Needham had driven the ambulance. Yates had organized the race. The ruses used on screen were the ruses that had actually worked in 1979. The joy in the film, the specific, unguarded, slightly manic pleasure the cast projects, was real because the situation it depicted was real. What critics missed in 1981 and afterward was that The Cannonball Run was never trying to be a good film in the conventional sense. It was trying to be a record of a specific time, a specific cast of people, a specific set of relationships, and a specific American philosophy about freedom and speed and the irreducible pleasure of going faster than you're supposed to go. It succeeded at that completely. Roger Ebert called it an abdication of artistic responsibility. He wasn't wrong about what it lacked. He was wrong about what it was trying to be. A film doesn't have to be responsible to be irreplaceable. And this one, with its fake ambulance and its drunk rat pack, and its uninvited James Bond, and its blooper reel that changed how movies end, this one is irreplaceable because you cannot make it again. The people aren't there anymore. The era isn't there anymore. The specific combination of star power and looseness and genuine pleasure in each other's company that produced what you see on screen, that is gone. All you can do is go back and watch it, and maybe, somewhere in the back of your mind, drive a little faster than you're supposed to. 15 facts, 1 franchise, and a question worth settling. Is The Cannonball Run a guilty pleasure, or is it something actually worth defending as a film? I genuinely think it's both, and I'm curious where you land. Drop it in the comments. Subscribe for more of this, the real stories behind the films everyone remembers and nobody fully knows.